a globally renowned expert from the Autonomous University of Queretaro, Mexico, Dr. Elhadi Yahia, please. Oh, and Q&A will be held after both presentations have been delivered in the interest of time. Dr. Elhadi, please. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for having me here. Very, very nice to be here. Pleasure. And I was asked to speak to you on some aspects of post-harvest handling practices for some fruits. My colleagues will speak to you on handling practices of some vegetables. It's going to be very brief, and hopefully we can give some details during the discussion, during the questions, but also, since that it is brief, the timing is very short and it is difficult to cover a whole lot of information, we will try to cover the most basic principles that we think that are needed. And I have prepared 5 presentations, 5 long presentations, very detailed presentations that are with the organizers. You are very welcome to access to them, because this presentation will be unfortunately brief. In addition to the 5 detailed long presentations that are prepared for you, and you are very welcome to have them, to have access to them. I have also prepared a big folder of reading materials and videos and books and literature related to these crops and these practices, okay? Now, some general, very general, if I can have the next slide, because I cannot get the slides to move, whoever the technician is. Now, whether it is custard apples or banana or mandarins or vegetables or etc., there are some very general things that we need to do. Is the technician around here? I can have the next slide. So, as I said, whether it is, doesn't matter what fruit, what vegetables, what perishable, there are some very general practices that one has always need to observe. Okay? In post-harvest or after harvest, all perishables deteriorates after harvest. We cannot stop that deterioration. The only thing that we can do in post-harvest is slow that deterioration process. We can never stop it. Okay? One other thing that we need to always have to remember, we have quality is always produced in the field. it is not produced after harvest. Quality always deteriorates after harvest. So if we start with good quality product, and if we do everything right, we may end up with a good quality product. If we start with bad quality product, most probably will end up by a worst quality product. Okay? So it is very important to produce good quality fruit in the field, because in post-harvest, the only thing that we can do is try to preserve that quality and try to reduce the process of deterioration. One more thing, and I'll be talking later about this, is that there are several things, there are many things that we can do after harvest. There are many practices, there are many treatments, there are many techniques, but the most important, the single most important thing that we need to do is to maintain the cold chain. The cold chain is the single most important post-harvest factor, and we'll talk about this later. Everything else that we can do, and we have so many practices that we can apply in post-harvest, all of them are nothing but complements to the cold chain. None of them can substitute the handling of the cold chain. Okay? So what are the most basic, important, best post-harvest practices? First, produce best quality fruit in the field. Produce best quality product in the field, and then maintain that quality after harvest. Maintaining it meaning that we have to start correctly. We have to pick the product at the right moment. We have to pick it right. We have to avoid injury, physical and mechanical problems. We have to handle without delays, as fast as possible. We have to maintain the cold chain, and we'll talk later in detail about that. We have to pack and package properly, and then we can apply any and all other complementary treatments to the cold chain, modified atmosphere, controlled atmosphere, irradiation, waxing, etc., etc., etc. All of them, I repeat, are complements to the cold chain. So let's start with the custard apples, after mentioning briefly these basic knowledge that we have to keep always in mind. We don't know very much about custard apples, unfortunately. We know very, very little. But you know, we know a lot about cousins of custard apples. Things like Cherimoya, especially in Cherimoya, where we have done a lot of work in Latin America and in Spain and some other countries. We know a little bit about others, such as Atimoya, sugar apples, and soursop. Some of these we handle a lot, especially in Latin America. And some of the practices that can be applied to these fruits can also apply to custard apples. What are the basic important characteristics of custard apples? It's a very healthy fruit. That's why there is a demand for it. It's a fruit that's, there are basically two classes of fruits and vegetables. There is a class of fruits that's called climacteric fruits, and there is another class that's called non-climacteric fruit. It's very important to know that the difference between two classes, because based on that, there are some very simple, important practices that we can do based on whether the fruit is a climacteric or non-climacteric. Custard apple is a climacteric fruit, meaning that it can ripen after harvest. Okay? In contrast to an unclimacteric fruit like citrus or like pomegranates, which do not ripen after harvest. If custard apple is a climacteric fruit, which it is, meaning that it ripens after harvest, it means that we can harvest it at different stages, depending on the end use of this fruit, whether it is going for processing or whether it is going for fresh market, and for fresh market, whether it's going for a close-by market, a distant market, an export market. So we do not have to harvest always at the same stage. We can harvest at different stages based on how long we would like to keep it and what storage duration we need. One other characteristic, a very, very important characteristic of custard apple is it is one of the fruits that produces the highest amount of ethylene. Ethylene is an important ripening gas. So if we apply some certain practice to eliminate that ethylene or make the fruit produce much less ethylene, then we can manipulate how long we can keep the fruit. It softens very fast, so we can manipulate that and make it live longer. It's very, very, very sensitive to cold temperature. It is one of the fruits that are most sensitive to cold temperature. So if we apply certain temperature, then we can manipulate it is ripening. If we apply a lower temperature, then the fruit will either ripen very fast or may even deteriorate. And it's like all other fruits and vegetables, it is attacked by diseases. So knowing these characteristics, theoretically, we can manipulate the fruit to make it live longer or short time. When to harvest it, how can we manipulate that it should produce less ethylene, not much ethylene? How can we manipulate to soften, do not soften very fast, knowing that it is very, very sensitive to low temperature, what type of temperature that we can use so it doesn't deteriorate very fast. Those are the most important characteristics. If we manipulate those, then we can make the fruit live longer or shorter depending on our needs. Again, okay, now, so the first thing to know is when to harvest it. Again, this is a climacteric fruit, meaning that the minute you harvest it, it will continue ripening. So we can harvest it at different stages. We do not have to harvest it all the time at the same stage. We harvest it at different stages depending on what we would like to do with it. And then, the index, and the most important index to base when to harvest it is the color of the fruit, okay? Now, unfortunately, there is no specific standard for custard apples. You need to develop that. It is not very difficult. I'll show you how to do it. But someone has to do it with the help of a certain institute. I'm sure it can be done. Okay? We can measure color. And that's how we do it. We do it very routinely in almost all type of fruits. We can quantify the color. That means that we can tell what color is needed when to harvest the custard apple for certain use. for the export to a distant market, for processing, to be sent to a close-by market, etc., etc. There are means to measure that color, to quantify the color. So we can develop that for you. Okay? You don't have to do that. If we can develop much simpler means. We can specify to the pickers how it is done. For example, here are some examples of how it is done for other types of fruits. We do that very often in almost all types of fruits. We decide the different stages, the different colors of the fruits, and when we pick that fruit, we decide at what stage should we pick it, when we like to send it for a long distance, or if we want to send it for a short distance, or we're going to process it. Okay? That can be done, that should be done, and that can be done very easily in the case of custard apples. It shouldn't take a long time to be done, and I think it is something that needs to be done immediately. We can always develop what we call color charts, and it is also developed for many fruits. Look, for example, at this one on the apples, which is universally being used, and there are many others that are universally being used for several other fruits. For example, we can develop something like the one that you see for apples, and it doesn't have to be even that complicated. Okay? We can develop something very simple, like 4, 5, 6 color tones at the most, and we can train pickers to use the different tones of the fruit for the reason that we need them to harvest the fruit for. Immediate consumption, local market, very close by, distant market that needs many days to get to, processing, etc., etc. So this can be developed very easily, and this needs to be developed immediately for custards, apples. And if you need help on doing that, we'll be very happy to help you doing it and developing it. Okay? So, in conclusion, what are the ideal conditions for custards, apples, based on the knowledge that we have so far accumulated in custard apples, but especially based on what we know about the cousins of custard apples, Shremoya, soursop, etc., etc. Ideal temperature is 8 to 12 degrees Celsius, depending on what you want to do with it later. 8 degrees Celsius if you want to store it longer, 12 degrees Celsius if you want to store it or you want to keep it for a short period of time. You need to pre-cool it. You need to reduce the temperature the soonest possible. And there are different ways to do it. The ideal way to do it is the method that we call room cooling. If you don't know what does that means, we can explain it to you. Remember, I mentioned that this is a fruit which is very sensitive to low temperature, to the cold. So we should not maintain it below 8 degrees Celsius. And ideally, if we want to keep it for a long time, we should not maintain it for a temperature higher than 12 degrees Celsius. If we want to ripen it, the ideal temperature to ripen custard apple is between 16 and 20 degrees Celsius, and always very high relative humidity, 90 to 95 degrees Celsius. With that, we can easily maintain custard apples for 1 to 4 weeks, depending on our needs. If we only need to maintain it for the local market, for immediate consumption, 1 week is enough, but we can easily maintain it for up to 4 weeks if we cool it fast if we maintain it at high relative humidity, and also if we handle it carefully, especially without physical and mechanical injury, and if we can eliminate ethylene. Remember, I told you in the beginning that this fruit produces very high ethylene, and that very high ethylene makes it ripen very fast. We can eliminate that ethylene really very easily. There is a gas which is very commercially available. It's called 1-MCP. I'm sure some of you know it. Commercially, it's called Smart Fresh. It's very much available. It's extremely easy to be used, and is extremely efficient to eliminate all the ethylene that the fruit produces. And when you use that gas in a closed space, then the fruit will not, the ethylene will not act in the fruit. It will not ripen very fast, so you can maintain it for a long period of time. So you can either do that, or there is a salt called potassium permanganate, which is also very much used. It's very commercial, is very much available, is extremely easy to be used, and is extremely efficient to eliminate the ethylene produced by the fruit. And when you use it, ethylene will not act in the fruit. The fruit will not ripen very fast, so you can maintain it for at least 3 or 4 weeks, which is sufficient to send it to several markets. You can also use modified atmosphere very, very easily. Modified atmosphere, remember again, and the characteristics that we mentioned, it ripens very fast, produces a lot of ethylene, very sensitive to cold temperature. All those can be eliminated if we use modified atmosphere. And modified atmosphere, and I'll talk later explaining what does it mean. It is not a very difficult concept. It's as simple as manipulating the component of the gas in the air, and we can do it by simply putting the custard apples in a certain package, so it generates an atmosphere different than the air, so the ethylene will not produce as fast as normal, it will not act as fast as normal, and the fruit will not ripen and will not soften as fast as normal. Okay? You can also wax it. Custard apples can benefit by waxing it, using waxes which are very much available, like the carnauba wax. And when you wax it, it will lose less water and it will ripen slowly. And also, you can package it using some sort of polyethylene. So there are means of delaying the ripening, delaying the softening, delaying the harmful effect of low temperature of custard apples, and there are means where you can maintain custard apple for no less than 4 weeks' time. Okay? Let's move.
What is the concentration of 1-MCP?
Of extremely low, like nanograms per liter.
How much ppm?
No, 1,000th of 1 ppm. I'm talking about nanogram, means 1 ppm is 1,000 nanogram. So you can imagine it's an extremely low concentration, because ONCP is extremely efficient on the ethylene. So you need very little amount of gas, which can cause you this beneficial effect. In the case of pomegranate, let's go back again. The basic characteristics of pomegranate is extremely healthy fruit. That's why there is a lot of demand in the market. We cannot stop that deterioration. The only thing that we can do in post-harvest is slow that deterioration process. We can never stop it. Okay? One other thing that we need to always have to remember, we have quality is always produced in the field. It is not produced after harvest. Quality always deteriorates after harvest. So if we start with good quality product, and if we do everything right, we may end up with a good quality product. If we start with bad quality product, most probably will end up by a worst quality product. Okay? So it is very important to produce good quality fruit in the field, because in post-harvest, the only thing that we can do is try to preserve that quality and try to reduce the process of deterioration. One more thing, and I'll be talking later about this, is that there are several things, there are many things that we can do after harvest. There are many practices, there are many treatments, there are many techniques. But the most important, the single most important thing that we need to do is to maintain the cold chain. The cold chain is the single most important post-harvest factor. And we will talk about this later. Everything else that we can do, and we have so many practices that we can apply in post-harvest, all of them are nothing but complements to the cold chain. None of them can substitute the handling of the cold chain. Okay? So what are the most basic, important, best post-harvest practices? First, produce best quality fruit in the field. Produce best quality product in the field, and then maintain that quality after harvest. Maintaining it meaning that we have to start correctly. We have to pick the product at the right moment. We have to pick it right. We have to avoid injury, physical and mechanical problems. We have to handle without delays, as fast as possible. We have to maintain the cold chain. And we'll talk later in detail about that. We have to pack and package properly, and then we can apply any and all other complementary treatments to the cold chain, modified atmosphere, controlled atmosphere, irradiation, waxing, etc., etc., etc. All of them, I repeat, are complements to the cold chain. So let's start with the custard apples, after mentioning briefly these basic knowledge that we have to keep always in mind. We don't know very much about custard apples, unfortunately. We know very, very little. But we know a lot about cousins of custard apples. Things like Cherimoya, especially in Cherimoya, where we have done a lot of work in Latin America and in Spain and some other countries. We know a little bit about others, such as Atimoya, sugar apples, and soursop. Some of these we handle a lot, especially in Latin America. And some of the practices that can be applied to these fruits can also apply to custard apples. What are the basic important characteristics of custard apples? It's a very healthy fruit. That's why there is a demand for it. It's a fruit that's, there are basically two classes of fruits and vegetables. There is a class of fruits that's called climacteric fruits, and there is another class that's called non-climacteric fruit. It's very important to know that the difference between two classes. because based on that, there are some very simple, important practices that we can do based on whether the fruit is a climacteric or non-climacteric. Custard apple is a climacteric fruit, meaning that it can ripen after harvest, okay? In contrast to an unclimacteric fruit like citrus or like pomegranates, which do not ripen after harvest. If custard apple is a climacteric fruit, which it is, meaning that it ripens after harvest, it means that we can harvest it at different stages, depending on the end use of this fruit, whether it is going for processing or whether it is going for fresh market, and for fresh market, whether it's going for a close-by market, a distant market, an export market. So we do not have to harvest always at the same stage. We can harvest at different stages based on how long we would like to keep it and what storage duration we need. One other characteristic, the very, very important characteristic of custard apple is it is one of the fruits that produces the highest amount of ethylene. Ethylene is an important ripening gas. So if we apply some certain practice to eliminate that ethylene or make the fruit produce much less ethylene, then we can manipulate how long we can keep the fruit. It softens very fast, so we can manipulate that and make it live longer. It's very, very, very sensitive to cold temperature. It is one of the fruits that are most sensitive to cold temperature. So if we apply certain temperature, then we can manipulate it is ripening. If we apply a lower temperature, then the fruit will either ripen very fast or may even deteriorate. And it's like all other fruits and vegetables, it is attacked by diseases. So knowing these characteristics, theoretically, we can manipulate the fruit to make it live longer or short time. When to harvest it, how can we manipulate that it should produce less ethylene, not much ethylene? How can we manipulate to soften, do not soften very fast, knowing that it is very, very sensitive to low temperature, what type of temperature that we can use so it doesn't deteriorate very fast. Those are the most important characteristics. If we manipulate those, then we can make the fruit live longer or shorter depending on our needs. Again, okay. Now, so the first thing to know is when to harvest it. Again, this is a climacteric fruit, meaning that the minute you harvest it, it will continue ripening. So we can harvest it at different stages. We do not have to harvest it all the time at the same stage. We harvest it at different stages depending on what we would like to do with it. And the index, and the most important index to base when to harvest it is the color of the fruit. Okay? Now, unfortunately, there is no specific standard for custard apples. You need to develop that. It is not very difficult. I'll show you how to do it. But someone has to do it with the help of a certain institute. I'm sure it can be done. Okay? We can measure color. And that's how temperature to the cold. So we should not maintain it below 8 degrees Celsius. And ideally, if we want to keep it for a long time, we should not maintain it for a temperature higher than 12 degrees Celsius. If we want to ripen it, the ideal temperature to ripen custard apple is between 16 and 20 degrees Celsius, and always very high relative humidity, 90 to 95 degrees Celsius. With that, we can easily maintain custard apples for 1 to 4 weeks, depending on our needs. If we only need to maintain it for the local market for immediate consumption, 1 week is enough, but we can easily maintain it for up to 4 weeks if we cool it fast, if we maintain it at high relative humidity, and also if we handle it carefully, especially without physical and mechanical injury, and if we can eliminate ethylene. Remember, I told you in the beginning that this fruit produces very high ethylene, and that very high ethylene makes it ripen very fast. We can eliminate that ethylene really very easily. There is a gas which is very commercially available. It's called 1-MCP. I'm sure some of you know it. Commercially, it's called Smart Fresh. Is very much available, is extremely easy to be used, and is extremely efficient to eliminate all the ethylene that the fruit produces. And when you use that gas in a closed space, then the fruit will not, the ethylene will not act in the fruit. It will not ripen very fast, so you can maintain it for a long period of time. So you can either do that, or there is a salt called potassium permanganate, which is also very much used, is very commercial, is very much available, is extremely easy to be used, and is extremely efficient to eliminate the ethylene produced by the fruit. And when you use it, ethylene will not act in the fruit. The fruit will not ripen very fast, so you can maintain it for at least 3 or 4 weeks, which is sufficient to send it to several markets. You can also use modified atmosphere very, very easily. Modified atmosphere, remember again, and the characteristics that we mentioned. It ripens very fast, produces a lot of ethylene, very sensitive to cold temperature. All those can be eliminated if we use modified atmosphere. And modified atmosphere, and I'll talk later explaining what does it mean. It is not a very difficult concept. It's as simple as manipulating the component of the gas in the air, and we can do it by simply putting the custard apples. This fruit is an unclimacteric fruit. It's not like custard apple. Custard apple is a climacteric fruit, so we can harvest it at different stages. This is a non-climacteric fruit, meaning that you can only harvest it when it is ready to be eaten. Not before, not after. If you harvest it before that, it will not ripen. If you harvest it later than that, it will be deteriorated very, very fast. This is the case of all the non-climacteric fruit. This is also a fruit that is sensitive to cold temperature, much less sensitive than the custard apples, but it is sensitive. And it is extremely sensitive to water loss. It loses water very, very fast. Okay? Remember those characteristics, because based on that, we know what to do to maintain the fruit in a very, very high, good quality. Okay? So, what do we do based on those characteristics? As always, for every kind of fruit or vegetables, you need to produce the highest fruit in the field. You have to harvest at the ideal, meaning that when the fruit is ready to be consumed, because it's an unclimacteric fruit, you have to lower the temperature. The faster, the best. And you have to maintain it at the low, safest temperature possible. I'll tell you what that means. Do not expose it to lower temperature because it is sensitive, as I mentioned, to low temperature. proper packing, pack it and package it adequately, and always, in all types of fruits and vegetables, it's important to avoid injury. Avoid mechanical injury, avoid physical injury, and in the case of pomegranate, using modified and controlled atmosphere is excellent, is very, very efficient. And I will explain that later, what it means of how to use modified atmosphere. How to harvest it? In the case of pomegranate, it's established. It is universally. That is the standard of when to harvest pomegranate. Do you remember? In the case of custard apples, I said we can develop a plate for different green tones of green color. It is already developed for pomegranate. This is the tone of red of color that is used for pomegranate. Not only the color, but we know at what quantity of juice and what quantity of acidity it should have when it is ready to be harvested. Okay? Remember I told you, pomegranate loses water very fast, so we have to take care of that. So when does it lose water? It loses water if the temperature is high, or if the humidity surrounding the fruit is low. So we need to maintain the temperature low and the humidity high. Okay? If we do that, then the fruit will not lose water, or it would lose minimum amount of water and will not deteriorate very fast. It's chilling sensitive, not as much as the custard apples, okay? But it is a slightly chill injured, okay? And it is attacked by a lot of diseases. So we have, so based on those characteristics, what are the ideal conditions? 5 degrees Celsius if we need to maintain it for up to 2 months. 7 degrees Celsius if we need to maintain it for longer than 2 months. Relative humidity always high, the highest possible, 90 to 95%, and modified atmosphere. Modified atmosphere of low oxygen and high carbon dioxide. Extremely efficient. Relatively easy to be used, and I will be very happy to explain to you those if you need to know in detail of how it can be done in a somewhat simple manner. Okay? Look at this picture. On the left is if you store it normally for 3.5 months. On the right hand, if you store it in modified atmosphere for 3.5 months. Huge difference in quality. So if you use modified atmosphere, you can prolong the storage life for a much longer time in the highest quality possible. Okay? Let's move very fast to banana. What are the characteristics of the banana? Banana is a climacteric fruit, just like custard apples, but not like pomegranates. Pomegranate is a non-climacteric fruit. Okay? Banana is a climacteric fruit. So what does it mean? It means that we can harvest it at earlier stages before it is ready to be consumed, so that we can handle it for a long period of time. Okay? Banana do not ripen properly on the tree. So it always needs to be ripened off the tree. If you leave it to ripen in the tree, it will not ripen to a right quality, to a good quality. Banana is very sensitive to cold, so you have to worry about that. It responds extremely well to modified atmosphere. In fact, modified atmosphere and controlled atmosphere commercially has been used for more than 50 years in banana. And that's how banana, until about 25, 30 years ago, all the banana consumed all over the world were produced in one small region in Central America. And because of modified atmosphere, it was sent all over the world. So thanks to modified atmosphere, now we can have banana anywhere on earth, produced no matter where. And banana is always ripened commercially, artificially, in the distribution center, not in the field. As I was listening to some of your discussion earlier. So I'll show that, okay? Problems of banana, it's very sensitive to cold. That's why you will never keep banana in the refrigerator at home, never, because it will deteriorate very fast. It ripens very fast and it decays very fast. Remember those problems? If you remember them, we'll know how to solve them. How to solve them, okay? That is the problem of the low temperature, or the chilling temperature. If you keep banana in the refrigerator, it becomes dark, just one like the pictures on the right-hand side. That's why banana should always be kept outside of the refrigerator, because it's very low temperature sensitive. It's very much sensitive to a lot of diseases. Okay? Maturity index, meaning when to harvest banana, is very much established for more than 60 years. It depends on the angularity of the banana. When the banana is immature first, the shape of the finger is a triangular form, and then when it starts maturing and ripen, that triangular form start to change to a round form. Okay? So that is the best way to know how to harvest banana. Banana, and based on what I was listening before lunch, the discussion, the value chain of the banana is being established for many years. It is harvested manually. It is ideally the process should be done in a packing shed or a packing house. But if the operation is very small, it can be done in the field. But ideally, if it can be done in a packing shed or a packing house, is much better. It doesn't have to be a very sophisticated packing shed or packing house. It can be very simple. But you need a place where you clean and especially use some sort of a disinfectant like chlorine. You need to trim the crown and use an antioxidant so that the crown will not be turned brown. You need to separate the hands. You need to apply a certain type of fungicides to reduce the problem of decay. You need to grade it, and you need to pack it. And ideally, you need to pack it in a modified atmosphere, which is an extremely simple method. I will show you how it is done, where anyone can do it very easily. And then you can either store it or transport it, and when it gets to the market, when it gets to the distribution center, then you do the ripening process before marketing. Okay? The harvest is done usually by at least 2 people. That is because a banana is very sensitive to physical injury, to mechanical injury. So you have to handle it very carefully to reduce that. Transporting it from the field to the packing shed or the packing place or the packing house has to be done very carefully. There are so many ways that is being done depending on the location. depending on how small, how big the operation is. But the most important thing is do it the way that you can do it, so that you reduce to the minimum the mechanical injury, the physical injury to the fruit. Then when it gets to your packing shed, it doesn't matter how simple it is, how sophisticated it is. You need to wash it, you need to disinfect it, you need to apply certain fungicide. There are certain fungicides that are universally applied, which are important and apply and work very well for the banana. You need to separate the hands. Sometimes you need to separate the fingers, depending on your clients, and then you need to pack it and package it, preferably with modified atmosphere. This is how it is being done in many places, the modified atmosphere. You see what they are using? What is it? Ladies? What are they using here to create a modified atmosphere? This is to create a modified atmosphere for the banana. This is what the ladies use to clean the house. This is a cleaner. This is a suction cleaner.
A vacuum cleaner.
A vacuum cleaner. Any vacuum cleaner of any size can work. All what you need is a plastic bag. Okay? So you use the vacuum cleaner of any size or any type or any dimension to eliminate the air from the bag. You close the bag and that's it. That's a modified atmosphere system. And that modified atmosphere system, which is being developed by United Brand Company in the 1950s, it's still being used until today, and it's extremely efficient. With this system, this very, very simple, easy system that we can do, and right now, if you want me to, we can get the cleaner from the hotel and I can show you how to do it. Yes, it's true. Believe me, yeah, it's true. I'm talking very seriously, and we can do that. And in few minutes we can do that. With that, you can create a perfect modified atmosphere that can maintain the banana for no less than 4 to 6 weeks period of time. So it's a very, very simple method, and it's been used for no less than 60 years. This is the easiest way of doing it. Of course, now there are companies that use other sophisticated systems to create not only a modified atmosphere, but a controlled atmosphere. But this system is perfect enough. It's good enough to maintain your banana for no less than 4 weeks, which is good enough to have your banana go anywhere to any market. Okay? Ripening. I know that it's been done very much in India, but I think unfortunately at least a few years ago, the last time I've been in India, they've been using a lot the calcium carbide. I hope that they are not using it anymore. It is better to use other methods, other much more efficient, very easy method. There is a method called Ethylene Generator, which is a very small, tiny thing where you add a liquid and you heat it, and the liquid will evaporate and produce ethylene in the form of gas. It's extremely safe, it does not explode, and it's extremely efficient. It will ripen the fruit very, very effectively, very efficiently, and the fruit will be ripened very uniform also, not as calcium carbide, where the fruit will never ripen in a uniform manner. So, ideal conditions for banana. You need to pre-cool it. You need to lower the temperature, the sooner the better. You need to maintain it in a temperature of around 13 to 14 degrees Celsius, never less than 13 degrees Celsius, because it will be deteriorated. Higher than 18 degrees Celsius, it will ripen fast, If you really want to ripen it uniformly, you need to apply around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius, always high relative humidity, 90 to 95. It's very easy. If you don't know how, just let us know and I will show you. It's extremely easy. Apply modified atmosphere in its simplest form. You do not need to apply a very sophisticated system. Very simple system will do, and ripen the fruit when it arrives to the market. Do not ripen in the field, because when you ripen it in the field and then you start transporting to the market, it will ripen anyway between the field to the market. And with that, you will get a life of no less than 2 weeks, from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, which is enough to get the fruit to any market that you need it to go, even to export market. Mandarins, very fast. What is the important characteristics of the fruit? It is an unclimatic fruit. I hope by now we know what that means. Meaning that you cannot harvest it before it gets to the ideal point where it can be consumed. Not less than that. Because if you harvest it earlier, it will not ripen, it will not change after harvest. It's also very sensitive to low temperature. Not as sensitive as custard apples and banana, but as sensitive as pomegranate. Is medium sensitive. And it is very much affected by diseases. Diseases by microorganisms, especially fungi, and also diseases without microorganisms. We call it physiological diseases. Okay? So, you need to produce the best quality fruit in the field. You need to harvest in the right moment. And in mandarin, we know when is the moment, when the ideal moment to do it. You need to condition the fruit, meaning that, especially if you harvest when it is during a humid day or right after rain, you need to leave the fruit in normal temperature to lose some water, to be conditioned. Okay? That's a very important process. And then you need to maintain the fruit or transport it at the ideal temperature. I'll tell you what does that mean. How much is that temperature? Never expose it to lower temperature, because it will be injured by low temperature. Pack it properly. Avoid mechanical, physical injury, just like any other type of fruit, and control diseases. Very important to control diseases, because just like any other type of citrus, mandarin is very sensitive to different type of diseases. When to harvest depends on color. At least 75% of color on the surface of the fruit, and at least 6.5 of a ratio of solid to acid ratio. I'm sure you know these practices because they are established universal practices for different types of citrus, and especially mandarins. Those are some of the most important problems of mandarins. It's very easily attacked by different types of fungi, especially penicillium, the green and blue mold, which is common for all types of citrus. And we know how to control and avoid that problem. But it's also very much sensitive to diseases that are not caused by microorganisms. Diseases that are physiologically caused, especially by low temperature and some other problems. So based on all that, the ideal condition for mandarin is an ideal temperature of 5 to 8 degrees Celsius. Depending on how long you want to keep it, you need to lower the temperature. You need to pre-cool it. And room temperature is fine, is enough. If you don't know what I mean by room temperature, please ask and we'll explain it to you. Never store mandarin in less than 5 degrees Celsius. Always maintain it at high relative humidity to reduce water loss. And with that, you can get a storage life of 2 to 8 weeks, depending how and your needs. If you need up to 8 weeks, then you can use, depending on the temperature, depending on, you can also use modified atmosphere in the case of mandarin. The last one is sweet lime. And it's just like all other type of citrus, sweet lime is also an unclimacteric fruit. Okay? By now, we know what that means, especially with relation to when to harvest the fruit. Just like all type of citrus, sweet lime is also sensitive to low temperature. And just like all type of citrus, including mandarin and oranges, it's also sensitive to several types of physiological disorder and several fungi, especially penicillium. Okay? In the case of maturity index, meaning when to harvest sweet lime, again, it depends on the amount of juice and the amount of acids. We measure the acidity of the juice, and in some markets prefer yellow, some markets prefer green. I don't know if it is the case around here in Asia, but in the American continent, for example, the North Americans like it green, and the Latin Americans like it yellow. So based on that, you can use it as a maturity index. Okay? So what are the basic things that we need to know and do? Again, you always have to produce your best quality in the field. You harvest it at the ideal temperature, meaning it is an unclimacteric fruit, so harvest it at a time when it is ready for consumption. Lower the fruit the most that you can with the means that you can. And later, when I talk about cold chain, I will explain further what this means. Maintain it at the lowest possible temperature, the lowest, safest temperature. Never expose it to very low temperature. Pack it properly, packages it properly, as all kinds of fruits, handle it carefully. Women always are best in handling fruits and vegetables. That's why all over the world, the ones who work in packing fruits and vegetables are always women, never men. You know why? Because fruits and vegetables, perishables, need careful handling. Men don't do that. It is true. This is true. If you go to a packing house, any packing house in Mexico, you rarely see a man. It's all women, because women handle the fruit carefully. Okay? And that is what all fruits and vegetables require to be handled carefully, never injured. Okay? Avoid handle them where they can be injured. Different type of citrus, and especially mandarins. Those are some of the most important problems of mandarins. It's very easily attacked by different types of fungi, especially penicillium, the green and blue mold, which is common for all type of citrus. And we know how to control and avoid that problem. But it's also very much sensitive to diseases that are not caused by microorganisms, diseases that are physiologically caused, especially by low temperature and some other problems. So based on all that, the ideal condition for mandarin is an ideal temperature of 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, depending on how long you want to keep it. You need to lower the temperature. You need to pre-cool it. In room temperature is fine, is enough. If you don't know what I mean by room temperature, please ask and we'll explain it to you. Never store mandarin in less than 5 degrees Celsius. Always maintain it at high relative humidity to reduce water loss. And with that, you can get a storage life of 2 to 8 weeks, depending how and your needs. If you need up to 8 weeks, then you can use, depending on the temperature, depending on, and you can also use modified atmosphere in the case of mandarin. The last one is sweet lime. And it's just like all other type of citrus, sweet lime is also an unclimacteric fruit. Okay? By now, we know what that means, especially with relation to when to harvest the fruit. Just like all type of citrus, sweet lime is very also sensitive to low temperature. And just like all type of citrus, including mandarin and oranges, it's also sensitive to several types of physiological disorders and several fungi, especially penicillium. Okay? In the case of maturity index, meaning when to harvest sweet lime, again, it depends on the amount of juice and the amount of acids. We measure the acidity of the juice, and in some markets prefer yellow, some markets prefer green. I don't know if it is the case around here in Asia, but in the American continent, for example, the North Americans like it green, and the Latin Americans like it yellow. So based on that, you can use it as a maturity index. Okay. So what are the basic things that we need to know and do? Again, you always have to produce your best quality in the field. You harvest it at the ideal temperature, meaning it is a non-climacteric fruit, so harvest it at a time when it is ready for consumption. Lower the fruit the most that you can with the means that you can. Okay? And later, when I talk about cold chain, I will explain further what this means. Maintain it at the lowest possible temperature, the lowest, safest temperature. Never expose it to very low temperature. Pack it properly, packages it properly, as all kind of fruits. Handle it carefully. Women always are best in handling fruits and vegetables. That's why all over the world, the ones who work in packing fruits and vegetables are always women, never men. You know why? Because fruits and vegetables, perishables, need careful handling. Men don't do that. It is true. This is true. If you go to a packing house, any packing house in Mexico, you rarely see a man. It is all women, because women handle the fruit carefully. Okay? And that is what all fruits and vegetables require to be handled carefully, never injured. Okay? Avoid handle them where they can be injured mechanically, and control diseases. There are certain fungicides that are allowed to be used, and transport them or preserve them in the right temperature. And the right temperature for sweet limes is 10 to 13 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity has always to be high, around 90 to 95%. And with that, you can get a storage life of up to 8 weeks in the case of sweet limes. And also in the case of sweet limes, you can use modified atmosphere. And I promise a little later, I'll explain what this modified atmosphere means, and how you can do it in a simpler form. Okay? if you need it in the simpler form. And wax it. I know that I think some people are doing it. Waxing is very, very important for all types of citrus. It is very commercially used. It's very universally used, and it's very, very important for all types of citrus. And you can package it by using liners, polyethylene liners. When you use polyethylene liners, you maintain a high humidity. Remember, I've been repeating for all types of fruits that it is very important to always maintain very high relative humidity. And we can do that by simply using a polyethylene liner, a very, very thin polyethylene liner. And that is my last slide. Thank you very much.
We move on to Dr. Neeru's presentation on the post-harvest of the vegetables. Now, Dr. Elhadi, if you could remain seated here, because after Dr. Neeru's session, we will open the floor for Q&A. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. English only, or should I mix it with Hindi or what? Huh? Both? Marathi I don't. Marathi I don't. Huh?
Translation is it?
There is translation, so I can go in.
Choose one language so that they
One
can
language.
translate.
Okay. So then English. Vegetables, it's a very big commodity, so I can't compile all the vegetables in 40 minutes. I have tried to give the basic information which is applicable to all the vegetables with some details. Might not be everything in the presentation, but I will explain as I go forward. This is data a project which we did for National Cold Chain Development Center for Northern India. Post-harvest losses studied at 4 places: harvest, post-harvest handling, transport, and wholesale. You can see the minimum losses are in watermelon and pumpkin, whereas maximum in cauliflower. How in cauliflower? I will explain. Same figures when I did a survey on tomato in Maharashtra, that is 9 to 18%, maximum to minimum. In northern India, it was 18 to 27%, because production practices are still better in this part of the country, so the losses are still low. But after harvesting, there is no facilities for storage. Packing is definitely better, but the storage is still not there. Okay, now come to the most important part: when to harvest what? Tuber crops, bulb crops. Drying of the apical portion is the most important criteria and the most visible criteria. Drying of the apical portion, you can also call it the neck portion. It's applicable for both bulb and tuber crops. Potatoes, same, falling of the upper portion of the plant. Size, obviously we can't guess from outside, but apical portion drying is the major criteria. Then for leafy vegetables, it's mostly the size, depending upon the market demand. Leafy vegetables, because we have to eat the leaf, so it's only the size. Obviously, when they enter into the seed stage, that is when it becomes a spice, it is a different matter. Cucurbits, again a lot number of groups. But what happens to increase the size, to increase the weight? What do the farmers do? They harvest it slightly late. Okay? Then what happens? The seed becomes hard, it's fibrous, and the yellowing starts. Your weight may increase, but you lose on your marketability portion, right? Melons, it's mostly the tuck-tuck method. If you get a hollow sound, it's mature. If you don't get a hollow sound, it's still immature, and pumpkins do slip from the stem. Fruit vegetables means all the solanaceous vegetables, capsicum, chilies, brinjal. For that, it should be shiny, glossy skins, but they should also not be allowed to over-mature. Once they are over-mature, then the seeds become hard and they start losing their firmness and entering into the seed production stage. Same is applicable for the pods, peas and beans also. They should also be harvested at a slightly immature stage so that sugar is maintained. Otherwise, in the peas, the sugar will start converting into starch, and we will also see the sprouting inside the seeds. Cole crops means cauliflower, cabbage and broccoli. They should be firm and full size. No separation of florets. As the cauliflower matures, you will see the florets start separating. There is fibrous structure on the top, and there is also a blackening. Most common, we see fungal development or the blackening on the surface of the cauliflower. Broccoli, slight delay in harvesting, treats to yellowing, instant yellowing, right? So, while in fruits, it's more of the maturity which has to be taken into account. In vegetables, most of them should not be over mature. It's slightly immature stage, except for the fruits, vegetables, and the most common one, tomato. Now, what after harvesting? We should take care to harvest only in the cooler part of the day. Late evening, early morning, both are applicable depending upon your market demand or when you are going to transport your produce. Generally, it is morning before the sun starts to shine brightly. The time difference between the harvesting and initial cooling should be as low as possible. And harvesting should be gentle, not tough. And I will also advise proper sanitization for that. Most of the harvesting in Maharashtra is in crates, but sometimes the crates are directly kept on the soil. That should not be done. Why? Because the pathogens can enter inside, and once they enter, one produce will destroy all of them. This is a portable shade constructed in one of the program. Advantage is that you have shades at all the farms, but you can take it anywhere you want. So if one farm is over, you can take it to a different farm. Now sorting. These are the photographs from Azadpur Mandi, Delhi main market. These type of produce ideally should not reach the market. It should be sorted at the farm level itself. Okay, actual photographs I have taken on my own. So these produce should not reach the market. You see, there is an infection inside an apple. There are other apples in the grapes. This one will destroy all of the produce, right? Please look at the quality. Then, what is this? I don't know. Animal is eating. Watermelon, a fruit which is so strong, has a thick skin. Even then, why it is damaged so much? Can you tell me? Why it is damaged so much? Watermelon has a thick skin. We don't. It doesn't need much care. But even then, you can see the damage. What could be the reason for the same? And at which stage of the supply chain? It's during unloading. What is done? The produce is just dumped from the truck. There is a ramp, sliding ramp, but still some of the workers just take it and dump it. That's why it cracks. Okay. So, gentle handling, I will say handle it like you handle young babies. If fruits and vegetables, they are also living beings. They are respiring and transpiring even after harvest. We have to maintain the moisture, we have to handle them gently. These are not very big technologies, it's just gentle, careful handling which needs to be implemented. Okay, now grading. Retailers do the grading, definitely. But if the FPOs and farmers do at their end, then they can get a better price before selling it to the trader or to the end buyer, whatever be the marketing channel, instead of retailer doing it. Otherwise, what they do, this much kg of produce or tons of produce, there is a fixed price, okay? They will take it. Once you grade your produce at your end, you can negotiate that we will settle, definitely sell the premium grade produce at a higher price, not all of them at a marginal price. Coming to, as onion was a major topic of discussion with few of the companies, curing of onion is extremely important. I am sure everyone does it, but if not, for the kharif onion, where there is more of the rotting percentage due to the high humidity in the atmosphere, artificial sheds can be created, artificial drying facilities can be created for them, so that we don't suffer onion losses in that season also. Okay, it can be done in the field if the humidity level is low. If it is not, then it can be done in the artificial facilities. This is ventilated shed structure developed from NHRDF, National Horticulture Research Development Foundation, Nasik itself. It's mostly it's the construction of raised platform. Then ventilation has to be provided from all the sides. Direct sunlight is to be completely avoided. According to the weather, the size of the cubicle is restricted 60 to 75, 75 to 90, 90 to 120. Maintenance of stacking height, that also depending upon the onion, it's same. And onion, whether it's storage, whether it's curing, whether it's transport, the main thing which we need to take care of is the humidity. More than the temperature, humidity needs to be taken care of, and it should be between 60 to 65%, not more. Onion, garlic, exposed to high humidity, they cast moisture, fungal development, rust problem, black rust, smudge, all the problems come to it. Tomato, just an example of what has to be an acceptability criteria. Smooth, free from blemishes, cat face, growth cracks, what's the consumer's demand. Well shaped, depending upon the variety, it can be round, global, whatever, but it should be shaped. Firmness, it should be slightly pushable, but it should not yield to pressure, and free from any insect infestation and diseases. These are the best practices for harvesting in a bag. Now you see, harvested produce is kept in the shade, but it is all type of produce. Which market are you going to market this produce? These needs to be graded, because tomato, if it is a light pink stage, it can be sent to an export market easily. If it is half-ripe stage, you can go for domestic distant markets. If it is complete ripe stage, it's better to sell it in the local market, so that your complete production is utilized and you are not going to sell a mixed state of produce. So at this stage, grading needs to be done so that proper market is easily identified. Two important news which we keep on hearing. Farmers are throwing the produce on the roads because the market has completely crashed, right? Another thing, we don't have, our companies don't get processing tomatoes from India. They take it from China, Nepal, Italy, USA, and Netherlands. They have price advantage in that. Why all our farmers in one season are producing fresh tomatoes only? Why not share? Some of them can shift to processing tomatoes. In direct linkages with the processing industry, tomato is a very processable product. There are a lot of products which can be produced. And if you have a huge amount of production, prepare tomato paste, prepare tomato concentrate, market it to big processing companies. That should be the ideal scenario. On one side, we are throwing the produce or marketing it at 1 or 2 rupees per kg. That doesn't make sense, and it happens every year. Even the planning of the production, if you study 1 year market data, you will easily get when the prices crash, when the prices are high. We can plan production, storage, and marketing based on that. No need for panic production, panic marketing, or panic sale. It can easily be done if for 1 crop or 5 crop you study the full year market data, you can easily get that information. Now weather data is also available, market data, daily information is also available. If you use zero energy cool chamber storage facility, 3 different stages of marketing within 10 days, 7 days, and 5 days, it reaches to full marketing stage. I will show you, this is the same figure, comparative chart. Percentage weight loss within 14 days, it's only 9%, still 10%, it's still marketable, whereas in ambient condition, it is 40%. Firmness rating 5 and color rating also 5 compared to the color chart. Important diseases are there, many diseases. If possible, handle it by trap crops and organic methods. Not much use of chemical pesticides. Post-harvest operations for tomato, do sorting and grading in shaded areas. Pre-cooling is generally not practiced, but if practiced from 30 degree to 16 to 20 degree centigrade, soft rot problem can be completely avoided. I am not saying to immediately jump into high-tech infrastructure, but even with low-cost infrastructure, it can easily be done. Tomato packaging all over India is done in plastic crates, but there should be no overloading. Crate should not be directly exposed to the sun, and I will show you, I don't know where is that figure, should not be covered by newspapers. This one point I need to highlight, newspapers release dangerous ink. Okay? So, produce crate should not be covered with newspapers, which is done in most part of the country. I know total harvesting packaging has shifted to the crates, but the only thing is they are sometimes left uncovered and they are covered with the newspapers. This is also a low-cost produce to store tomatoes in the glut period, whole tomato concentrate. This is just the representation of zero energy cool chamber, or a bigger size of that, 1 metric tons work along cool chamber. Some of the shelf life of some of the vegetables in JDCC, even potato can keep up to 97 days, cauliflower up to 12 days. I will show you. Leafy vegetables which are spoiled in half a day can keep well up to 3 to 4 days in zero energy cool chamber. So there also we can leverage slight marketing period. This is the existing packaging and transport facilities which we use, right? They should definitely be replaced by plastic crates and CFB boxes, because they are stackable, palletable, like that. We can see the damages caused by impact existing methodologies. There is a lot of impact damage during loading and unloading. When we keep it stacked, there is a lot of compression damage. One jute bag on top of the other, the lowermost produce gets destroyed. Vibration damage during the transport when it is transported, and then there is damage to the package also, there is damage to the produce also. For high-grade produce, please use cushioning materials, either in the form of crate liners, either in the form of net foam bags, either in the form of honeycomb structure, but it's better to use crate liners, cushioning materials. so that any bruising injury due to the nails and outside layers of the packaging material can easily be avoided. Cauliflower, I will tell you, when the season comes, wholesale markets are laden with the leaves of cauliflower. These leaves are quite rich in vitamin A. So if they are harvested at the field, they can easily be converted into powder and can be utilized for the fortification of wheat. Highly rich in beta-carotene and vitamin A. This is the complete utilization of cauliflower. Not a single portion of the produce should be wasted. And the leaves which we use as cushioning material to cover the individual curds, they can be converted that CFB boxes because they are stackable, palatable, like that. As the cauliflower can be converted by the cling film. Advantages is you can save on the transportation cost and you are getting one more value-added product. Plus, each cauliflower which is covered by crate liner, okay, it was not marketed in local market, but if you go to the high-raised societies, they are marketed at a 15% premium price than the exposed cauliflower. And there is no blackening or any type of structure. If I give you a small example of a small pack house, not a very big, we need a pre-cooler, 5 metric ton to operate at 1 degree C and 95% RH, storage 20 metric ton, trimming, grading tables, packing area, 20 metric ton per day. This module also applicable for cabbage and lychee. This I have sourced from NCCD, right? And this complete value chain, shelf life for enhanced for 3 to 4 weeks. This I have already. Similarly, okra, packaging and transport look. Gunny bags we get from Western Uttar Pradesh, Koth blacks, nearby farms of Delhi, and ventilated CFB boxes from Gujarat and Rajasthan. Fresh okra is very easily bruised. The bruises blacken within few hours. The major problem of okra is blackening on the surface, right? And you will see a bleaching type of injury if okra is left without refrigeration for 24 hours. Storage container should permit ventilation. And now the recent packaging method is all okra should be lined on one side. Apical end one side, distal end other side. Should be uniformly packed, so it's not visible in the photographs, but it is called as soldiers technique. Soldiers means our army soldiers, how they are standing according to the height. So recent okra retail packaging is done according to the soldiers. Height, uniform maturity. Modified atmosphere, as the sir told, is very much applicable in okra. I have tested. And LDP 50 micron is the best to pack the okra. But that is for unit packaging, not bulk packaging. Marketing, traditional chain versus cold chain, farm, collection, sorting, packing center, normal supply chain, harbor, regional mandi, or local processing plant. Or if we go into cold chain, then we can go to distant markets, perishable export center, and distant domestic markets. That will increase our margin. But for optimum utilization or to get proper price of your produce, both chains should be fully utilized. We can't ignore one, we can't just take another. For complete marketing that the whole amount of produce is sold, both chains should be taken. If we are just going for local marketing, you can just take normal supply chain, but distant marketing, although pricey, it will improve the chances of higher prices. If anybody wants to know about this, but I have already shared in the previous presentation, so I can skip that. That's all. If you want to know, I can continue with this also.
Yes, please. Please continue on this, how it works and what is the benefit of the new technology.
It's cool bot, cool room. This was technology developed by Mr. Ron Khosla, Indian based in USA. It's a cool bot. It has 3 sensors in an insulated room. Okay, the sensors are directly attached to the air conditioner. So it regulates the temperature of the air conditioner to go beyond 16 degrees centigrade. We are easily maintaining the temperature, whatever is required for our tropical and subtropical fruits, but we have gone down to 4 to 5 degree also. With this, for cauliflower and cabbage, 4 to 5 degree, and for other crops, okra and all, slightly higher temperatures. Okay, you can see just cauliflower and cabbage, 21 days of the storage period in cool bot, cool room, and normal temperature. Just see the comparative weight loss in outside temperature, ambient temperature, and in the cool bot, cool room. Same core temperature rating, it's maintained at around 9 degrees centigrade inside the cool bot, and where it is 26 to 30 degrees outside the cool bot. This is same system installed at a farmer's retail mandi in Sultanpur, Uttar Pradesh. They have supplied this data. What they do, they have a retail mandi. Along with that, they have the storage. So they take out the produce only which the demands come. Rest of the produce is stored inside the cool room. The total capacity of the cool room is 10 metric tons. Okay. And the farmers are earning with this, only with this facility, the net income from this facility has increased up to 1,72,000. Total construction cost is 1,20,000 only. And this is being done by the farmers themselves. I just provided what to do, how to do, their construction, their cost complete. It was 3 years back data. It's still running. I inquired a few days back, and it's still functional for the storage. This we have already discussed: season-wise regular training on maturity, harvesting and post-harvest handling, development of collection center, pack houses, storage facilities, ripening centers for banana and custard apple, artificial curing facilities for kharif onion, and multi-commodity cold storages, along with linkages for the market. Thank you.
Cell number, yeah, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Neeru. Now we would like to open the floor for Q&A for both presentations. Dr. Elhadi and Dr. Neeru, thank you very much. First, a round of applause. Now the floor is open. Please raise your hand and the microphone will come to you. And microphone. Okay, please.
Myself, PD Kare, I am one of the director of Maharastra State Custard Apple Association. So, regarding custard apple, we are facing a lot of problems. The early ripening of these custard apples in the fruit, in the field itself, after harvest also it gets like a natural ripening area. So, how this problem can be realized? In the field, pre-harvest, after post-harvest.
Post-harvest here, yeah, and just let me just conclude what we said on post-harvest. Okay, so let me go step by step. First of all, I think the reason that they having a problem with the fruit after harvest, I think because they don't harvest at the right time. I think they are harvesting it much later than it should be. And being a fruit where you can harvest it early and then ripen it when you want, just like banana, then it's much better to harvest it not when it is at an advanced ripening stage. Okay, so that way you can handle it. It can withstand the handling process. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is, especially that I understand that custard apples is usually harvested around August, September, and I think should be warm around that time. Temperature should be, the fruit should be cooled down the fastest possible, with any way possible, even by using shade, as Dr. Andrews mentioned. If it can be pre-cooled, it's much, much better by pre-cooling it in a room temperature. So if temperature can go down faster, okay? Or in other words, the fruit should not be kept to be heated under the sun without cooling. Okay? So that way the fruit will not deteriorate very fast. Okay? The other things is that if you can maintain the fruit at a cold temperature, as we mentioned, around 13 degrees Celsius, then the fruit will be deteriorate very slowly, and then you can keep it longer. Okay? And the additional things, using any ethylene inhibitor, like one of the two options that we mentioned. There are several other options, but those are the options that are very much commercially available and commercially used. The 1-MCP, which is in the form of gas, or the potassium permanganate, which is in the form of salt, that you can keep it, and then it will absorb the ethylene from the air where the fruit is maintained. Okay? That's another additional thing that can keep the fruit ripened very slowly, okay? And will keep much longer time. Additional thing is if you can establish some easy way of modifying the atmosphere around the fruit. Packaging is the easiest way of modifying the atmosphere around the fruit. Okay? So if you do those things, I can assure you that you will get no less than 3 weeks out of custard apples. Okay? But if you don't control the temperature, if you don't cool it down, at least by shading it, by not exposing it to the sun. Okay? If you don't maintain it at least a cool, not cold, at least cool, not as hot atmosphere. Okay? Then and if you harvest it later than it should be, okay? Of course the fruit will deteriorate very, very fast, and you will not get a much long time after harvest. Okay? So those stories that I hear where you can only get 2 or 3 days, it's because of that. You harvest it very late, you don't cool it, you don't manipulate you don't handle it carefully. We've seen some of the pictures, even from the presentations of the before lunch, where the fruit is not manipulated carefully. It's injured. Okay? Of course, it would be difficult to get a long storage life of the fruit. Okay?
We have already tried this, putting on the bulking film and potassium permanganate, but we can't really succeed in that issue. Can you suggest any changes in cultivation practices to extend the ripening of this process? Is there any process?
Say it again.
Any change in cultivation practices?
If I may interrupt here, after this workshop, the experts will have the opportunity to visit some of the farms, including the custard apple. So this is where we would be able to assess the current prevailing practices in more detail, rather than in this room to talk about the broad principle. That was the aim of today's session. But this discussion is what we call just a starter, and we will be able to explore further in detail, comparing it to the situation on the ground.
Okay, so in the magnet project, custard apple is one of the crop.
Yes.
I am the one of the director of this association. There are so many farmers associated with this association. So in the interest of the farmers, we must get the proper knowledge or guidance from the expertise, so that we can pass on this knowledge to the growers.
Yes. Yes.
What problem they are facing right now.
So Dr. Elhadi will be visiting some of the custard apple farms,
Right
and
now,
we shall be in...
Right now there is no custard apple in the field.
Yes.
He has also given a detailed presentation.
Just announcement. Just an announcement. Okay. This time, we got the expert just for the workshop, and followed by the field trip just to look at the current situation, right? Talking to many of the companies, we started already doing that. And what's going to happen next is that let's do this custard as said that Dr. Elhadi just even explained. Let's do it on the soil of Maharashtra. And see if we can do this sort of interesting companies that are already sort of like willing to participate. Some of the APOs are willing to participate. We want to establish what is suitable for this Maharashtra practice, as long as it's, meet the criteria, extended shelf life, or better quality, that will be able to market it to so many other we're willing to help. Magnet is going to be the one depot, but next year we're going to come back and do that sort of nitty-gritty things with the participating companies only right now. So that's what we're going to do.
We are sure confident that Dr. Elhadi will be coming up with the solution on this, because he is such an eminent personality with vast, very experience, and he has written so many books. See, when I was a student, I used to refer his books. So he is an eminent. I am sure that he will come out with the solution on this problem.
You can suggest any changes in cultivation practices, maybe in irrigation, maybe in nutrition management, or crop geometry, or change in cultivars. These are the points or where we can focus to extend this ripening process, or can decide the harvesting index also, when to be harvest, like this. Now, from last year, Jain irrigation has started the processing of custard apple also. So we are now in processing of custard. So again, there is a lot of potential to connect these farmers with the custard apple farmers.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there, we would like to collect a few, couple of questions, given that we are a bit behind time. Any burning questions, maybe from the lower half of the room first? That end of the room first? Okay, one question, and then any more? Okay, then 1, 2, and then we move to the next session. Mr. Ranjan, please.
Dr. Elhadi, I would request you to share some more examples of modified packaging, the one that you explained of using in vacuum cleaner. Some easy to use methodologies, mechanisms which are more possible in the field. If some more examples can be given on different crops, that would be really helpful.
Okay, and then Jain irrigation, colleague, one more question.
Yeah. My question is to Dr. Neeru. In your presentation you explained about onion storage, passive ventilated onion storage. The second question would be on the gulgut. But the first one is about this onion storage, passively ventilated storage. Do you think that there is a need to improve on this storage?
There was a need to improve, it has already been improved.
There was, I tell you, previously it was all straight racks. Now, after some research, it has been converted into slanting racks. So, according to me, it has already been there.
And see, if you see the current problem,
what is the problem?
There's a stored onion which has been in the market at the moment. And if you see the quality of that onion, this actually, I think, to maintain that quality, we need to have some study on the onion storage. This is passively ventilated, where humidity is not controlled, where the airflow is not controlled, temperature is as it is in ambient, so it's uncontrolled. So there is, as you know, there are two regions where we can store the onions, like at 20 to 30 degrees Celsius and at 0 to 2 degrees Celsius. So in any point of time, in summer, particularly summer onion are stored in this onion jars. So temperature that time is almost 40 degrees, 44 degrees Celsius, 45 degrees Celsius. The hot waves are always there. So,
we should take up this.
Okay.
Second thing, whether this school booth is commercial in India. I know there are certain installations happen overseas, because school booth is going to be a promising technology.
Right.
That's very much promising, very efficient.
Where is using, we are also in touch with Joint Secretary Agriculture, who is going to support us to commercialize it. Actually, we are the university, so our mandate is not commercialization. But anyone who comes to us, we help with their technologies, but now which consulting group was it? I don't remember.
Like a demo at our maybe at our plant. So we know a lot of about the cooling vacuum chambers. We can use that and
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is commercializing. We are just providing technical support. We are not.
I saw one hand from the Harvard group participation. Please, one more question and then answers. Please.
My question is, what is the sweet lime harvesting technology? How to, which technology is efficient to harvesting sweet lime?
Okay, thank you very much. So there are two questions, one from Mr. Ranjan on other crops, and then a specific elaboration on sweet lime. So Dr. Elhadi, please.
So how to harvest sweet lime, as we said, is based on the it is harvested on the basis of juice and the basis of acidity and total soluble solids to acidity. A ratio of no less than 6.5 bricks to acidity and at least 30% juice. That is the standard that you should use to base for harvesting sweet lemons. The questions from there, if I understood it correctly, he was asking about the methods that modified atmosphere can be used.
For other crops, yes.
Can he wait for me so that in the next 15 minutes presentation?
Yes, indeed, there is
say a few things, and then if he still has some doubts,